Debuting in 1969, the Marvel Comics superhero team Guardians of the Galaxy is a ragtag group of ex-galactic criminals and mercenaries who band together for a greater cause and to defend the galaxy from people worse than them. Throughout the years, the team has been made up of various characters, but since 2008, the main 5 and most popular members consist of Gamora, Drax the Destroyer, Groot, Rocket Raccoon, and Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord. Since their inception, the team actually hasn't had that many appearances in the world of Marvel video games, likely due to them only gaining mainstream popularity since the MCU film that released in 2014. Outside of the 2 games that we'll cover today, the only real appearances we've had of the team were as minor characters in LEGO Marvel Superheroes and Ultimate Alliance, or a few playable appearances here and there in Marvel vs. Capcom. Today we're going to review and rank the 2 games which they lead, one from Telltale Games and the other from Eidos Montreal. If you enjoy talking Marvel video games, then hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of my latest rankings. It really helps out the channel, and leaving a like will also boost your support. This is Guardians of the Galaxy. Enjoy! The first shot of a Guardians of the Galaxy game came with Telltale Series of the same name, which released in 2017 for all major platforms at the time. Like most Telltale games, this was a point-and-click adventure with some occasional QTE action sequences, and the few odd segments where you get to control Star-Lord around some small environments, looking for clues to solve puzzles or interacting with your team. However, gameplay only makes up roughly 30 to 40% of this game. The rest you'll be enjoying Telltale's thrilling narrative that they've crafted here for the Guardians. They were clear they didn't want to make an origin story. The game begins with the Guardians already together. In the first episode, they're chosen by the Nova Corps, a faction of space police, to help them in their fight against the Mad Titan himself, Thanos. You get this epic QTE action sequence that highlights each of the Guardians' talents. And what? They kill Thanos? Yep, Thanos is dead from episode 1. This just makes it clear that we're in for a whole new adventure with this team, no retreading ground that the MCU has already covered. From their victory over Thanos, the Guardians claim the treasure that the Titan had acquired, an artifact known as the Eternity Forge. In their possession, the Guardians attract the Kree Empire, led by Hala the Accuser, who will act as the game's new antagonist. It turns out the Eternity Forge can bring dead things back to life in exchange for someone who is already living. Hala wants this to resurrect the Kree and her son. This plot device opens up how each of the Guardians have their own desires and new motives surrounding the Forge. Each of the 5 episodes dives into one of the Guardians' backgrounds, showcasing some really memorable moments and some okay writing. You'll learn about Drax's life with his daughter Cameria and wife Hovat. You'll discover all the experiments that Rocket went through on Half-World and losing his close friend Lila. You'll visit Gamora's past with her sister Nebula and how she'd fight Gamora for Thanos' approval. Peter Quill's time with his mother Meredith before he left Earth is also captured through multiple flashbacks. And Groot is a tree. The Guardians have such different backgrounds that they all come with such varying motives and desires, and it's this that makes them very interesting to explore, and Telltale managed to pull this off very well with the Eternity Forge plot device. The relationships are so strong and well handled, and with this game primarily making you play as Star-Lord, the team leader, it puts you in charge of making the big decisions that will affect the whole team, handling the repercussions of such team leading as every choice may not be the best for someone else, and dealing with this and seeing where it leads the group is the most interesting part of this game. That being said, the villain does bring the experience down a notch, as Hala the Accuser isn't nearly as developed as the Guardians, nor is she anywhere close to being as intimidating as the Mad Titan who gets defeated in the first episode. It's the relationships of the team that what carries this game's plot. As for the game's presentation, it's really hit or miss. As writing goes, the best dialogue was in the flashbacks, learning about the Guardians' relationships with their close ones. The worst writing comes when the game is trying to mimic the humour and personalities of the characters' MCU counterparts. The character models are also really lackluster. Star-Lord looks like some drunk homeless guy in a back alley was the one that got abducted by Yondu and just stuck a red jacket on him. He doesn't really look like the cool space rock star and leader that he's supposed to be. The animations are really stiff and robotic. It's not the most appealing game to look at. Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale series, is another fairly janky, point-and-click Telltale game. It might not have the most intimidating threat, nor does it have the best humour or writing as other Telltale games have shown, and may be quite bloated at times with wandering around and engaging in a lot of dialogue trees. However, there is still a rather fun adventure here with a great cast voicing the Guardians, good team dynamic, and enjoyable action sequences.
Groot, a Flora Colossus, last of his kind, fearless in a firefight, an awesome best friend. Rocket, bona fide super genius and a wizard with explosives. Definitely not a raccoon. Gamora, adopted daughter of Thanos, deadliest woman in the galaxy. Need we say more? Drax the Destroyer, convicted serial murderer and galactic war hero, often grumpy. Last and definitely least, Peter Jason Quill.
That's it? That's all you wrote?
It was a character limitation.
The second Guardians of the Galaxy game came around this year and was developed by Eidos Montreal, the same studio behind the recent Deus Ex games. This entry was a third-person action game and another solo single-player adventure, not repeating the same mistakes Crystal Dynamics did with 2020's Marvel's Avengers. This entry also begins a short time after the Guardians have already teamed up, getting that out of the way. The game takes place over 16 chapters that sees the Guardians accidentally unleash a dangerous being called Magus that starts to infect whole fleets across the galaxy through a religious cult called the Church of Truth. You'll play solely as Star-Lord, travelling through the galaxy as you piece together the game's mystery stories. You'll go to some well-known and less-known locations and meet many other factions that may or may not assist you in the final battle, depending on the choices you make throughout the game. Yes, dialogue choices return from Telltale's Guardians, and even affect your relationships with many different characters, and even changes one of the levels in the game depending on which choice you choose, but there is still only the one ending. My favourite aspect of this game was the narrative and characters. Each of the Guardians are so well realised in this game.
How's that even gonna work? The thumper goes beep 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 and the monsters come running?
It goes more like, wah! Wah! Wah!
Holla, rocket!
Stop this ruckus at once!
And then the monster comes a-running out of its hole.
They have great voice actors behind them and fantastic designs and animations that weren't just feeling like copies of the MCU. So much so for me that these are my new favourite incarnations of the Guardians. The film versions don't really show a lot of backstory to these characters. I mean, they're limited by runtime to fit all these characters into the film. And so they don't really lean on much why these characters are as broken as they are. As much as the game nails the comedy aspect, so are the more emotive parts. Seeing Drax reunite with a fake visage of his family, or hearing the very feelings Gamora has about her sister Nebula and the way it's affected her relationship with others.
It isn't about Thanos. It's about Nikki and what men like Raker and Thanos do to girls like her. Like me. My sister. If I had just been better at protecting Nebula, maybe she wouldn't be dead. How can you be friends with a monster? Why would you want that on your team? A team I actually kind of enjoyed being on.
This entire conversation between Drax and Peter Quill about their losses and moving on.
I came to honor the memory of my family. They died without meaning or honor.
That's why you come up here.
Yes. Feel close to them. Speak to them. Perhaps you think that sounds foolish.
No. Not at all.
When Thanos murdered my family, for a long time I believed that their wasted lives would be redeemed if I took revenge on him. But then I realized Thanos cannot be killed. Peter Quill.
Yeah.
I hope your mother found her way to heaven.
You don't get these types of interactions often in superhero movies or video games, always trying to quickly get to the next action sequence, get to the next villain introduction, or the next cheap gag. But here, Eidos Montreal was brave to make room for these moments, and it made the bond between the members and the chemistry of the actors much stronger. It really paid off. But Drax is still my favourite Guardian. His serious comedy, because he doesn't understand sarcasm, is hilarious here. And the delivery, his wholesome attitude and the performance from Jason Cavalier is just perfect. It makes his more serious and emotional moments all the more interesting.
Because you're part of Green Team.
You assigned me to the team before you named it. My skin is not green. It's teal.
Teal.
This game does a grand job on making this team really come to life, not only in cutscenes, but also in gameplay. In fact, they never really shut up, always creating banter or managing to form some sort of conversation or argument out of the situation, bringing it up when you venture off the path and explore, asking where you're going, even down to commenting to simply firing your weapons at nothing. To create this much dialogue must have taken a really long time, and thankfully none of it gets repeated or becomes boring. All the dialogue adds more and more personality to these characters.
Hunting this thing kinda reminds me of this time when my hamster got loose and I chased her all over the basement.
Was she a fearsome beast?
Yeah, she had a mean bite. Did you guys have pets?
I had an eyeball in a jar. It never blinked because it didn't have its eyelids, but it always looked like it wanted to.
Okay, moving on to Drax.
I would much rather discuss the eyeball.
For side characters and boss battles, Eidos Montreal scoured the whole of the cosmic side to the Marvel Universe. Mantis makes a big appearance, as well as Cosmo the Russian telepathic space dog, Gold Space Jesus Adam Warlock is a big factor in the story, the Mad Titan Thanos even shows up, for at least in a vision. And we even get an awesome return from the mighty space dragon Fin Fang Foom, who I've not seen since the Marvel Ultimate Alliance days, so that was really nice. We've even got a load of video game debuts, like the Cthulhu-inspired cosmic villain Dweller in Darkness, one of the earlier bosses in the game, Kree Super Soldier Captain Glory, and the Monster Keeper Lady Hellbender, who has a debt to receive from the Guardians. This game also does an incredible job on its locations. There's so many dazzling alien planets and places to explore that it rivals Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. The environments are so rich with detail, from a long-lost battle zone held suspended in space by a pink goo-like substance, a planet of circular landmasses battered by lightning and thunderstorms. Nowhere is here, the space station that felt like walking through the cantina from Star Wars. There's even the Collector's Museum you can visit on Nowhere that has loads of Marvel artifacts and Easter eggs to look at, like Mandarin's 10 rings, the Cosmic Cube, and even Stan Lee's sunglasses are here. All this really adds to the world building of the Marvel Universe, unlike any game prior. Well, I think it's time to mention that unlike Telltale's Guardians game, this one has plenty more action. Playing solely as Star-Lord, you'll fight a variety of pirates, Nova Corps police, and space cultists throughout your adventure, even running into many vicious wildlife native to the planets that you'll explore. All of the combat is from Star-Lord's perspective, in which he has these two laser pistols that come with some alternating firing modes. Now the other Guardians can't be controlled, instead they're AI teammates, but they can be given orders which essentially you'll tell them when they can use their special attacks, which each Guardian has 4 to choose from. Rocket has firepower and explosives, Gamora has attacks with her sword that deals high damage, Drax's knife moves deliver high stagger, and finally Groot is a more support character, with moves focusing on destabilizing enemies or healing teammates. As far as raw gameplay goes, it's not a bad system. It has you playing as team leader, strategizing when and where to put your team, and even comes with some neat team up moves. But when you fought a lot of the later, tougher battles, you'll start to see some repetition. Star-Lord is a very spammy character with not a whole lot of depth, so being positioned as him the entire game can be tiring. Giving orders to your group whilst engaging in real-time battles can be cumbersome when there's a lot of enemies targeting to kill you at the same time that you've got to make these fast decisions. This style of gameplay really needed one of two things. Either a gameplay system like the recent Final Fantasy VII Remake, which had time stop between special attacks so you could strategize your team more and have more time to think, or it just needed to let you switch to the other Guardians, giving Star-Lord an AI to control him whilst you've switched to someone else on the team. This would have made the battles less repetitive and clunky towards the end. However, that being said, I do still like what they were going for. The combat is still enjoyable. For extras, Eidos Montreal's Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't skimp on the player. You've got a brilliant amount of costumes that can simply be unlocked by exploring the levels and finding them in these purple chests. I give major credit for doing this, and I hope this shows Crystal Dynamics this is how you implement good quality cosmetics. These costumes are also really epic, unlike the stupidly expensive paid ones in Marvel's Avengers, which most are just palette swaps. Here there's some actually awesome and comic accurate sets to unlock, each one coming with the character's thoughts on the costume and even further detail explaining where the costume first appeared and who the writers and artists were of that comic. And with the cutscenes being in real time, you get to see the skins here too. There's also an encyclopedic amount of bios on all the characters, enemies, planets, factions and more that you'll discover within the game. Overall, Guardians of the Galaxy from Eidos Montreal is a really fun adventure through the Marvel cosmos. While its gameplay isn't always the most robust or exciting, and its in-between time is a combination of exploring for collectibles and then telling Drax to move a platform or Groot to make a bridge, the rest of the experience still goes above and beyond to give a long-lasting Guardians adventure. Great music, epic amount of characters and references, incredible development of the Guardians, quality acting and animation, and a solid story.
Let us rouse our spirits with a Catathian battle anthem.
What? Like now?
You know what? Flark it. Let's do it.
And so, with the Guardians games reviewed, let's go straight to the ranking. It's no surprise that at second place I have Telltale's Guardians of the Galaxy, a good adventure through the backstory of this group, having some touching moments and fun action sequences. However, its cheap designs, poor writing and janky animations hold it back from being greater. So first place goes to Eidos Montreal's take on the characters, a really detailed storyline that fits enough time for every member to shine, and a grand crusade through the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe. It's astounding to believe that only a few years ago the Guardians of the Galaxy were a very obscure and minor Marvel IP, and today they're one of the most successful franchises from the company. Two really fun games that do wonders in making you connect and feel for all 5 of these unfortunate characters, all with different styles and attitudes and outlooks on life, yet managed to gel together like any wild family. And Eidos Montreal's version of the team may have just made these some of my favourite Marvel characters, and that alone is an achievement. This has been my coverage of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Let me know in the comments below which one's your favourite game to play, which is your favourite team member, and what more would you like from the Guardians of the Galaxy IP in video games in the future. I've been Don Critic, and have a nice day. Thank you all so much for watching, and adios. Take care.